Hello everybody and welcome back to the Rain of Spades YouTube channel. Today we're doing something a little interesting, a presentation on, simply put, how to DM. FooF is running his first ever campaign here very soon and asked me for my advice, having done this for well over a decade. So I decided I'd put together an informational video to share what I'm teaching him with you. This might turn into a small video series. I'm going to do just a general tildeer first with this presentation, as well as creating a simple, small, relatively self-contained setting for usage, or for my own usage, to show you how I personally go through the process. This will involve things related to balance, creativity, general tips and tricks for DMing, and maybe we'll see where it goes from there. I also considered making a video similar to this for map making, general balancing, and possibly even system conversion, as I am making my own tabletop system very, very slowly but surely. It's still, legally speaking, just a mess of words and ideas right now, but hopefully we can get that patent soon, so we'll see. Or trademark or whatever. I forgot. I know I shouldn't have said that out loud, but oh well. Anyways, let me know if you're interested in that. Let us begin. So simple. This is the beginning of the world building presentation. A basic tutorial by a decade-long GM is the subtext involved. But let's move on. The inspirations for the world we're going to be developing today, I put a handful of pictures. I find that this is one of the most helpful ways of elaborating to people things, and the rest of the presentation is pretty boring, so I wanted to get something eye-catching here at the beginning. So we'll get into what some of this stuff means more, but some big inspirations for this setting that I'm going to personally be making is, because I know FooF wanted to do Final Fantasy related for his, so I'm going to do something similar
Yes.
that he can work off of. We have a little cloning device here. We have Final Fantasy. We have Genshin. We have Naruto. We got little amulet thingamaboober for and the big inspiration for what I'm personally going to do is I wanted a small self-contained setting. And I think a perfect inspiration for that is Made in the Abyss. Multiple layers, a city up above, trials and tribulations with mystery and with mystery aspects involved, where the characters simply wake up in a pod not knowing anything. It's a simple drag and drop, anyone can get in, and varying degrees of play can make it a one shot, can make it a long lasting campaign. I'm gonna try to hit the bases that I can hit, but let's not spend too much time yabbering on. The basic idea is each of the 7 floors, we're going to do a Dante's Inferno style thing, where there's a limbo above the 7 stories, and the lower you go, the less people have been there. Specifically, each floor has an element and a sin tied to it, is the general ideas that I have had so far. So let's go over some basic world building tips and tricks. How I've decided to do this is I wrote this in the same way I would write notes. We'll get into that a little bit later, of course. However, we will be going through slide by slide, and I will expand upon each simple bullet point. So feel free to read along. The basic idea for world building is simple. You should have a solid grasp on your inspirations, and keep your lore in a straight and neat. You don't want to add unnecessary plot holes or go over complicated for what you need. Keep things simple, keep things straight, keep things clean. Have your ideas organized in your head before you start putting them on paper is the simplest thing. Everything has been done before, so as long as you aren't outright trying to copy, I won't worry about it. Especially if it's for private use, just ball. Lots of people enjoy having campaigns in the actual setting itself, and while I personally am not amazingly comfortable with that, because there's a lot of characters I just don't feel confident in role-playing in settings that I haven't personally created, everything's been done. The whole Dante's Inferno, Made in the Abyss, Dante's Inferno, all this kind of based off the same thing. They're done differently, and great artistic pieces can come from similar backgrounds. So just have fun. Develop the general setting before diving deep into the plot planning. To increase on immersion and other general, uh, like honestly, just knowing what you're doing, you should have the wide world created, or at least the parts of it that you're going to be using during your campaign. This is the first of the major steps. Thought out the basic lore, like what's the big deals in this world? What are people looking out for? How many countries are there? Simple things like that. Are there gods? Just general lore like that can really help with immersion, and it helps you come up with like saying, "Hey, these are my inspirations. This is the campaign I want to run. Uh, here's the basics of the world," and then you can start developing the plot, because you can't have a story. Well, you can have a story in a literal ancient black abyss with nothing around you, but it's kind of hard to get immersed in a story uh, of solitary confinement. So, the final thing and the biggest of the steps is hit general plot points, understand your player base, and then lock in key details. That's pretty much my general go-to of in that order. When I'm developing a world, I will do these things in that order, and then that's the first step. Once you have that set up, you can start expanding on it, which we'll get into in the next slide. However, once you have the baseline, the backdrop for your world, the backgrounds of the setting, what people are doing, what people are saying, all of that, and you've incorporated a lot of your inspiration into that, you can start hitting the general plot points for the story you want to put your players through. The best way I can think about it is I think DMing is making a story for other people. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's your player's story and you're the one running it." I don't necessarily believe that. I think it's your story that you're running for the purposes of someone else. They are the protagonist. They're getting to be the main focus of it. They are the people experiencing it, the main character, that sort of deal. Your story is how I personally like to think about it. So think about the story you want to tell, and think about their interests. Ask them, what do you want to do? What do you think? Here's the setting. What would you want to do in it? It's a very good way of starting. Then finally begin locking in the key details when you have those things, trying to get a good mix of the two, the things you want to do and the things they want to experience. And this is targeted more towards new people, so that's why I suggest directly talking to people. Sometimes if you have a wider play group, it might be a better thing to be like, "Hey, these are the things that are happening in the world. This is the story, like the campaign I want to run." Or hell, if you're gonna do one of the pre-made books, like Curse of Strahd, you can be like, you don't necessarily have to ask, "Hey, what do you want to do?" It's more of a thing if you pull out Curse of Strahd and go, "Hey, want to run this?" But still a good idea to get a good idea of what your players want to do, what they want to play, the story they want to be incorporated in, so on and so forth. Okay, so note taking. Poopa specifically asked me a lot about how I personally take notes, as I'm known for being incredibly well versed in note taking. I have lots and lots of notes, and I am seemingly prepared always for what they're going to do. Except, of course, if you watch the streams, the goobers known as the Big Three. They always throw me for a loop, but that's aside the point. So anyways, I'm going to share with you some of my secrets here of how I personally take notes, and then continue on to the building of the world and start actually giving you examples. There are a handful of blank slides I'm going to fill out manually as this video progresses, showing you the details and putting together the tips and tricks that I've shared with you to actually further develop this world. So, simply put, with note-taking. Unlike most GMs, I legitimately suggest plan as much as possible. Because the thing is, I really, really prefer open world campaigns where you don't have the conversation I just talked about in the last slide. As I'm trying to hit as many audience here as possible. I'd rather have a niche video about hitting as many different places as possible than having one concise video that only applies to the majority of people. So, I love open world campaigns. Back to the point. This is gonna have a lot of yapping. I apologize ahead of time. But in my general campaigns, how I'll run it is I will drop you in the world after telling you these are the things that are happening in the world right now. This is the very, very basic idea and the starting point. Do whatever you want. If you want to run into the Ancient Black Dragon at level 3, I've had a group of people win against an Ancient Black Dragon at level 3 and, like, jump up multiple levels, get good rewards. And I've had a group who ignored all the warnings, went to the Black Dragon, and immediately died to an acid breath. So, that's just how I prefer to run things. And to run things like that, you have to be prepared. So some of these note-taking advices, and I might end up putting out a template for how I put notes. I don't necessarily know how to make that, but I'll let you know, and you'll see it in the video description if I do end up making that. To better explain this, it's generally better to have the basics prepared over a wide area than a single missable plot point over-explained. If there is an option for something, players will often take it. There are multiple ways to take this. You could go with the illusion of choice of the story is the same regardless. They have 3 villages they can go to, and the only place that changes is the name. Like I said, I hate that. You could do that if you want and really, really develop a single plot point really well. And then, if they go to Tovlor village, they get attacked by Sephiroth or whatever. Or if they go to Honeywood village, they get attacked by Sephiroth. It's the same thing. However, I would rather have a basic understanding of Honeywood village, the village known for its honey production. They have many apiaries, and the nearby forest provides a unique and rich flavor of honey. Whatever. And then Tovlor village is known for its military production. It has a nearby fortress as well as a prominent blacksmith. Things of that nature, where there's actually options. If you're going to give an option, I suggest giving a real option. Of course, as I said, the illusion of choice also simply exists. As said, the players will take a choice at some point. If you were to run any module and it has an option of you can only go to one village, if you run it 3 times, I almost guarantee you that each different playgroup is going to choose one of the 2 options. It also kind of can make people butthurt, and it kind of sucks when you put like your heart and soul into a plot point and the players just decide not to do it, and then you're scrambling by. My suggestion on how to prepare is simple 2-sentence descriptions that will jog your memory or work as a prompt to work off of later, adding bullets for more important details and tracking how such things will affect the world. So for each plot point for each village, do as I did earlier. Honeywood is known for its honey production. It's nearby a woods. The woods makes it so the honey tastes unique and has a high production value. The bees go out into the woods and get that random nectars. And then perhaps you could put it's known for its honey production due to the nearby forest as the first sentence. And then put secondarily, it is a upper middle class town in which many farmers live prosperously but limited in defense, or something like that. And that will jog your plot point memory, put a bullet point, possible goblin attack in future. Secondarily, put something along the lines of player X's mother lives here, or whatever. There you go. And those are the general plot points. They will remind you and work as a prompt for later. And you have an idea of, obviously, if they choose Tavlor Village over Honeywood, possibly there's no one going to be there to defend the goblin attack. Mayhaps the player's mother will, well, not the player's mother, the player character's mother will send a letter to the party requesting aid in the upcoming goblin invasion or something like that as soon as like the siege begins, leaving a difficult choice for them. And then the effects on the world would be fairly obvious. If they fail to defend the village will be mostly destroyed, leaving only a handful of survivors. Or something of that nature. And then and then put maybe a bullet point for something simplistic of Tavlor can send aid. So it's not an all or nothing situation that's dire, like Honeywood Village will be completely destroyed if they choose Tavlor every time. Tavlor is known for its blacksmith and fortress, as we said previously. So perhaps if they do a quest in Tavlor, the local lord would be willing to send his troops to aid in the assault. Simple things like that. Even though I said a whole paragraph of text, it can really just be simplified to 2 sentences and 3 two-word bullet points. It should be enough to jog your memory, and if it's not, it works as a wonderful prompt so you aren't completely side-bombed when they choose to go to Honeywood after having talked for an hour and a half about going to Tavlor. Very common. And then the next simple point is to prevent both under or over planet, limit yourself. I thought FooF spell checked for me.
I thought I did.
I wrote 2 as in the number 2 there, but it's fine. Limit yourself to around 2 paragraphs worth of text per option as a maximum. This is pretty simple. Sometimes you'll really get into a writing mood and you'll be like, I have books and books and books worth of pages on Honeywood. And you have to stop and ask yourself, are the players actually going to stay in Honeywood or Tavlor that long in this grand quest that they're going on? In the general plot, is it really going to be worth it to write out every single character's name to exist in Honeywood? Maybe if there's only like 10 people, you could put their names if you're really in the writing mood, but do the same thing I just said of bullet points. Put blacksmith John, underpaid, the only person who knows how to fight in the village, or something like that. So put underpaid, only fighter. Enough to jog your memory, and just do that for the general 10 important characters of Honeywood. That's literally 5 words per person. Rather than writing out their entire tragic backstory, put tragic backstory involving daughter. Enough to jog your memory of what you've done, while also not overcomplicating the plot needlessly by something that is highly likely to be missed. So something like that. Then also finally, only do more than that on things that are integral plot points and events or unavoidable events. If you choose to, let's say hypothetically, regardless of if they go to Honeywood or Tavlor, the next town they go to will for sure be attacked by Sephiroth, and replaying the iconic event where he burnt the village to the ground and killed that one girl whose name is slipping my head. In front of Cloud. So we'll say they'll do that to get the players hooked on actually defeating Sephiroth or something of that nature. In that case, you would want to put the plot details there. That's where you would want to put more than 2 paragraphs. Perhaps he gives a villain monologue, going against his usual silent nature. Perhaps there's a description that you really liked in your head. Write out the full word-for-word description in quotations and put a note to yourself. read this as the village burns. Then put out all of those details of. So the players must live 2 rounds of combat against him before he will evacuate the premise for unknown reasons and things of that nature. Actually write out those parts in details. It will help to remind you that these are important details and are guaranteed to happen. It will also allow you to have those moments have more impact as they're more well planned and thought out. So it won't take away from the general time constraints or anything of that nature, but it will allow you to plan out those specific details, differentiate them from the rest, and not slow down the campaign by over planning every little detail. Pace yourself. And that bullet essentially goes down to the tilde of pace yourself. The final thing that I always personally do that makes you seem really smart and well prepared and helps to really bring the adventure together is if you know your players have interesting solutions, add a handful of interesting solutions to each of the known problems that you're adding. Perhaps you know your players have a water theme going on. They all have create water in some way. One's a Triton, let's say, and then another one just happens to be like that one cleric subclass that gets create water. Slash the one's an ocean druid, things of that nature. And you think maybe they'll try to do some spell to make it rain or to create water on the fire to extinguish the village that Sephiroth is attacking. Add a small detail of if the burning is stopped in combat, the buildings can actually be looted or something like that. Whereas if they don't stop the fires, any potential loot inside would be destroyed. But generally speaking, who's going to loot the burning houses? It's just a basic preparation thing. Or, for example, if one of the big things that always sticks out to me is in Cobalt Press's monster manual thing, they have like a tortured angel, and it has a collar on it, like chains that are locked and can't be picked by mundane means. And so rather than just having it be, oh, they can't be picked no matter what, they added in a specific detail of if a high level knock spell is cast on the chains, the angel will be freed, and it will give the players a hero feast as a reward. Like it will give them a reward for having freed them. Do some basic things like that. It makes you seem really well prepared, really smart, and it can really help bring the adventure together and feel really rewarding to your players so that you took note of what they can do and added some special ideas just scattered throughout some hidden details. Maybe add a couple if you want to have a more general use campaign of just things that you could do in general, like an impossible to pick door that requires a specific key. What happens if they do cast knock on it? Or what happens if they destroy the door? Having a negative reaction if they destroy the door, and if they cast knock, perhaps the puzzle door will give them a reward for being clever, but tell them it won't work again. Or something like that. I think that really does help a lot. On to the next slide. Yippee! Also, this is already at 25 minutes. Intriguing. This has got a little harder. But anyways, this is World Building Continued. These are the final notes before we actually start building the setting that I will personally be using. I have a tips and tricks in the next slide thing. I think I'm going to skip ahead and then go back to the tips and tricks to make it. Yeah, here, let me switch the order of the slides real quick. Boom. There you go. Okay, now then. These are questions I like to ask myself, and I've answered here for the setting. These are questions you should have in your head when you're preparing the general module that you're creating, the general campaign you're attempting to run. Once you already have the world building tips we've gone over before, the general plot let out, a handful of key details well planned, a general idea of who your player group is going to be. Things like that can change, of course, but if you have like 7-ish people who are interested, and you're like, well, we're gonna have to like narrow it down to 4. I'm sure some people are gonna say no, and schedule's not gonna work out. That's just the nature of games like this. It doesn't matter what you're playing, D&D, Pathfinder. Schedule's a bitch. That's how it
That
goes.
is very true.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, my upcoming one is like 5 people
yeah.
total though.
Yeah, that's generally fair. That's about where you want to be. Generally speaking, campaigns, since he brings up this point and it's pretty valid, I'll answer the question. Generally campaigns are balanced around 3 to 5 players, 4 being the average. Campaigns can have less or more, but both in Naruto 5e, most things are based off of a party of 3 to 4. In 5 basic D&D 5e, CR rating is determined by a 4 general group of level of 4 people. So a CR4 creature, generally speaking, can take on 4 average level 4 people, so on and so forth. I could go over more of that. Pathfinder, I'm also pretty sure is 4 people, so you can have significantly more, and I will have some tips and tricks on balancing encounters and things like that later in the document, but understanding that basics of your play group is pretty important. Anyways, going over some of these, we'll just speed run these bullets. How long will the campaign generally last? In this case, the answer, the ones in the parentheses, are me answering the question. Depends on the play group. What are the end goals and how many general options are there? This is the best way to think about this is Baldur's Gate, right? You have generally speaking only 3 possible endings. Like there's only 3 general options for how the campaign ends of evil, illithid, go burr, it good ending, nether brain go burr, dead is dead now, the world is saved, hip hip hooray. Or it's one of the handful of minor alternative endings, and there's a lot of smaller details. We're talking about the big ending here. Like, did they stop a war? Whatever. Did the war happen? How things can end. And in this particular campaign, there are 4 options. How much are you railroading? A term which means forcing them down a single track. Or how much open world will there be of how much completely choices. Unlike most of my campaigns where I will give complete open world over a world I've been with for a very, very long time and feel confident in, this is a little more middle of the road. There's only so many options that can be taken, and while they're free to take any of them, there's only so much they can do. And there's a little bit of a fire under their ass for once. What is the starting point of the campaign and the characters within? This I more mean level. I mean, what's their general story? Like, are they nobles? Do they have money? Do they have connections? In addition to that, literally, what level are they? How strong are they? And everyone's completely new in this campaign. They're waking up in a cryopod, very sad. Boom, level
The
1.
plan's level 1.
Well, mine's level 3, because I hate people not having archetypes, but fair enough. Level 1's a great place to start.
Because I feel like it's gonna be more. They learn more as they go rather than already knowing things. Because they're all at the end of the day, they all have amnesia at the start.
You know what? Fair enough. So there you go. That's another answer. So if you're adapting pieces of this, that could be fair. Also, if people don't know what archetypes they want to be, generally speaking, starting with archetypes is a bad idea in that case. Let them develop it naturally. I just have a personal hatred for not having archetypes at the start because people, it would be like, in my backstory, I'm an Eldritch Knight. I've studied Arcana my whole life. And then not be able to cast a single spell till level 3. And then you're just
That's fair.
kind of looking at them the whole time of, why, yes, I know Arcana. I am not proficient in it, however, and cannot cast magic. I just, Shrug. Read a lot of books, I guess. Anyways,
That is fair.
how challenging do you want the campaign to be on a simple scale of 1 to 10?
Mhm. Probably like 5, 6. Not too challenging, that it's like Dark Souls, and not too easy where it's like something like Animal Crossing or something.
That's valid, and that's about what I did too. Because I just personally hate campaigns that cannot provide a challenge, where there's like never a moment of, oh my god, someone might die. Because while
That
yeah, it's
um
go on, sorry.
no, I mean that's fair. Personally, like I think more fun rather than every single campaign like thing is there's a chance of death. I think some of them, like bigger bosses fights, I think would probably be have a chance of death, but majority of them, I feel it just like roadblocks. That's what I think about.
That's fair, and I think that that's a valid point. Because if every encounter is lethal, then big encounters don't mean anything. If
Yeah,
they have a chance of dying to the random frog in the witch's swamp of Baldur's Gate, it's like at that point I question
why?
it. Yeah, well, the Auntie Ethel fight has less meaning if two of your players died to the frog. Uh, so
Mhm.
so while I think there should always be a level of threat, that's why I think generally speaking, 5 boss encounters should have a potential, like a decent potential for lethality while not being over the top or unbalanced. It should be a thing of
Yeah,
it feels like a threat when it is a threat. Like, sure, the
yeah.
random, oh hey, there's a rogue chocobo on the road. Probably shouldn't be a lethal encounter. There probably should be no
No.
chance of death of even if it knocks someone out, they just lay on the floor, not taking death saves, being like, "Oh, that chocobo kicked me really hard," uh, or whatever. Or similarly, the frog in the swamp. That situation should probably be a similar one where, like, damn, you just got your ass kicked by a frog. That's funny. Roll with it
Yeah.
at that rate. But then also, once again, if you're fighting Sephiroth, bro's gonna cut your head off. There ain't no two ways about it. He's fucking you up.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying in mine as well. They are a good mix of roadblocks that'd probably be around something like a difficulty class 3. And then there are some legitimately complex and hard fights that if you're not prepared, you will die. That being around somewhere like a challenge rating 7 or 8. And so at that point, I'm putting it in the pretty middle of the road as well. Where it's generally like a 5. Then also a general feel for the world on a simple scale of grimdark to fairy tale. Literally look that up on Google if you don't know what I mean. Grimdark is 40k. Fairy tale is like uh God, I can't think
Sure.
of an example.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is what I think of when I first think fairy tale.
That one's still kind of darker though. There's some I don't know, a lot of things are gonna
Uh,
fall in the middle. There's like
that's
Grim Bright,
fair.
whatever. So I'm putting it towards the darker setting because there's a lot of messed up concepts in this one, similar to like because Made in the Abyss is one of your inspirations, it's going to be messed up. There are weird curses. There's weird curses. There are like sins related to each floor. You're literally in a giant earth crater.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
fairy tale. That's a fairy tale.
Oh yeah, no, that's a perfect example actually. Fairy tale is
It's
yeah, like hardly anyone dies. It's the
they
darker
that's the biggest issue people have with it is no one dies.
yeah, the
When you
dark
think someone's dead, they're back alive.
exactly. And then there's like the darker themes. They're kind of overwritten by brighter things. It never gets too messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So like yeah, also that's a perfect example. But where do you fall? I'm falling pretty in the middle again, but leaning more towards darker. If I had to put on the actual
Yeah.
scale, I'd probably say something like a Grim Bright or something like that, where it's like closer to
Fair.
Grim Dark, but eh. What system is best for the setting? I'm gonna personally give a handful of examples in this. I'm going to make it for 5e my own system and Naruto 5e, as I think those three fit this one the best. That might sound complicated, but those might be split up into different videos, and I'm going to do just very, very generalized ideas and examples rather than specific, like making the module.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
well,
Personally, I think 5e because that's like the simplest one,
agreed.
and you can
Yeah,
change things to fit your that system at the end of the day.
generally speaking, yes. Um, Anyways, if anyone wants D&D 1, sorry, I'm not going to talk about it. I refuse D&D 1. I don't like it. I'll make that very
They
abundantly
call it
clear.
D&D 2024 now.
Yeah, that's D&D 2024. Wow. Yeah, it's why I don't call anything DM or anything like that other than out loud because they have copyright of that word, and that's why like I'm being careful about certain things I say. I just don't like D&D 1 to be honest. I really ham it up how much I don't, but it's just the fact of a lot of my complaints about 5e were how do I say, made worse, simply put, and then, or kept. And then a lot of the
I
things I
see.
liked about 5e got altered in ways that I don't like, and it's just, in my opinion, I can't play it. It frustrates me
That's
too
fair.
much. But this is supposed to be the speedrun. How do you describe it to an outside observer? Simply. Simply put, for mine, um, so this is if someone wanted to like watch your stream. If you were trying to sell this to somebody else as a product of being like, hey, you should join my campaign. Uh, or if you're just like, hey, what do you
Uh,
think of this? How do you describe it?
so, because my original idea was like something Final Fantasy related, like not exactly Final Fantasy world, but it's Final Fantasy inspired. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
So like I want a like fantasy, but also with sci-fi elements. That's kind of that part I like about Final Fantasy a lot.
Fair, fair.
That's
For
how I would enjoy it. But yeah,
for me, I would describe it as a dungeon delving mystery adventure within a supernatural maw opened in the earth itself,
mm,
with sci-fi elements as well. So yeah, there
yeah,
you go. Simple. Now then, let's actually start building this world, shall we?
yes,
So, do do do. Recording in this is weird because it's making the red lines appear. Ah, okay. Then I think after this we'll cut this part of the video, and then we'll go into it part two, for
yeah,
the balancing and other tips and tricks.
all
So,
right.
simply put, the very baseline of the idea is, uh, one day a maw opened up, uh, in the earth.
So this is the whole like history of the world you're making
To some extent, I'm
for the
doing
most part.
what I explained previously in the world building elements. So going,
Yeah,
this is the general thing, these are the general plot points, so on and so forth. And so,
I see.
uh, my inspiration for this is and I'll like, go over this more in the tips and the tricks. I wanted a sort of weird elementy thing going on with like the options of curses, transformations, cool items hidden in the darkness, but at a greater and greater cost. And so I'm all opened in the world. Uh, there, buffer. I'm literally just gonna write buffer. But
Okay.
there's a buffer between it and the entrance and the rest of the world. In this buffer, there are bunkers, a destroyed town, and the remnants of civilization. Uh,
Oh, I get it. This is how like the conflict, like the whole deal of why they're adventuring or something, it starts. How
yeah,
you
yeah.
want it to start or something. I see.
So yeah, destroyed town. Little people. And so there we go. There's our first sentence of the general concept of the world. We have it as I said. Each floor is associated I can't spell words. Associated with both an element
And
and a sin.
let's see.
The elements being
The buffer science.
the elements being fire, water, earth,
Earth and air.
air, lightning. I guess we'll call it lightning,
I
sure. Yin and
usually they
yang
would put
with
like light and dark kind
yeah.
of thing.
So that's what we'll
And
do here too. Yin and yang, dark light, essentially.
yeah.
Though I want a minor switcheroo on some of this. So instead, we'll leave light as is instead of dark. And
What do
now
you
we'll
give it?
leave it too, I guess. We'll leave it. I have ideas for later on that could possibly be involved. And so then the sins are obviously, in case you need a refresher.
The seven deadly sins.
Yeah.
Pride, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth,
Cool.
wrath,
Wrath.
greed.
Great, thank you. And great. This is not the order they're going to appear in. This is just notes for right now. We'll get more into it later, but so the general idea is each one will be associated with one. The maw has artifacts within it.
By maw, you mean like some kind of tower? I'm
No,
confused with what you mean
maw
by
is a
maw. Like usually
mouth.
maw's a mouth. Yeah, that's what I'm
A
confused.
giant ass mouth opened in the world. When we're making a
Oh,
map,
and
it
inside the
lit
mouth is
the
all of these
layers,
stuff.
yeah. So
Okay,
another
that makes a lot more sense
inspiration
now.
I'm going off of actually is Flesh Pit National Park, which is
Uh-huh.
it's a deep fake analog horror of they just found a mouth in the earth of a giant sleeping creature and they made it into a national park because you could go down into its mouth and there were different attractions and
Oh,
stuff.
I
And so the
see.
thing is, one day it randomly vomited and it like killed everyone inside and got closed down semi-permanently. And so I kind of really, really like the idea of one day a giant mouth opened up and then in its stomach are literally just horrendous, interesting things. Called one of the big things in this world will be called catalyst, which that's cat says catlist. Why does it not have spell check?
Catalyst.
Catalyst.
Lyst. I'll take care of it. You can just
Whatever,
write. I'll
it's fine.
spell check them.
Catalyst. They have elemental and energy inside and grant strange powers based off the floor they came from. That is the general gist of the whole world. The general plot point is varying factions are fighting for resources and to uncover the mysteries first. The players may choose whom to back, if anyone at all, or to simply rebuild the buffer.
Mhm.
They will need to explore and uncover mysteries to survive in this strange new habitat, as there is no way back to the real world right now.
I see. Once you get in, you can't get out.
Strange artifacts with no element exists deeper in the dungeon maw. But the abyss holes mean death.
Oh.
So, so how do you get down? So simply put, there's a giant ass abyss hole on every level, which goes down to the next floor. But if you jump down it, you just straight up die. Elbozo. So how do you actually get down? Strange artifacts with no elements and deeper powers and understanding. Like the one that Bondred used to switch his bodies with his peons. Exist further down within. Conceptually. With this, we have our general plot line understood. The players have the option of they wake up in limbo. They are in the destroyed ruins. There are a handful of people left. There's a blacksmith. There's everything you would need for your adventure to begin. They don't have catalysts of their own, just their own power to rely upon. And so, they have the option. Do they go deeper in, risking going interfering with other factions and getting tangled up in the ongoing war that is going down inside? Be it a war of information and a war of resources, or a literal all-out brawl. Will they continue down that path, or will they instead stay in limbo, only going down to find the resources needed to rebuild, opening a haven for others, attempting to reconnect with the real world? What path do they choose? Do they embrace the abyss, or do they run from it? And with
I
that,
see.
our basic thing is explained. I answered the previous questions already, and this is generally enough for a simple taking of notes. That's, like I said, how we went. That's my little reminder text. Should be more than enough to go off of. I wish I was better at typing and talking. Probably could have shaved 5 minutes off the video. But for some other basic example of note taking, need to order. So I'll remember that means actually order it. Gluttony is first floor. Maybe add a death and light element sorta deal. Add a formation curse or relic to each floor as a moral dilemma and risk of going further. And that's the general thing of this. The further down you go, the better the rewards get, but the harder it gets to survive. You may get powerful bonuses. Like, one thing I was thinking of is like a spirit transformation or something, where you offer
Oh.
you're offered like a blessing by a giant tree, this is just a thing conceptually before we move on into the tips and tricks. And I'll go to the tips and trick page right now so you can start reading ahead. Because I want this to be under an hour, so we're 48 minutes, we're good. Anyways,
Yeah.
so my idea was simple. I had this kind of vivid idea of there's a big tree on one of the floors, and it offers you to become a guardian of the floor, where you'll get immortality and great power, but you'll lose your humanity at the cost of it. And so what this will allow you to do is you can still freely take a human form, but you essentially gain a wild shape. And that wild shape is technically your true form. So, like, you turn into, like, a badger or something, like a spirit badger, and you can still take your human form and go around. And you get, like, a handful of minor benefits, let's say. Like, in addition to having a free wild shape, charge, even if you're not a druid. You also get the ability of uh like the short range teleportation or whatever. Like you can teleport
Mm,
back to the thing you are guarding,
I see.
but only while you're on the same floor. Like, or also getting something like all weapons are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming resistances or whatever. Once again,
Yeah.
only on the floor that you are guarding. So you gain a bunch of benefits on the specific floor, but you gain a handful of disadvantages. If the wild or if you ever reach 0 HP, instead of going into death saves like a normal character would, you instantaneously go into your wild shape, even if you've used it already today. And if that also reaches 0 HP, you die because you're now a
Yeah.
spirit. You're now a spirit guardian, no longer a human. So you're not going into an unconscious state. You are returning to your true form, and if they kill your true form in the same way of any normal monster, you yourself would fall. Then the second
Uh,
thing would be if you fail to protect the thing you took the oath to protect, you will be punished in some way. This doesn't necessarily mean death, but this could be like, oh, you can no
for
longer
sure.
return to a human form, or you lose the ability that all of your attacks are considered magical, something like that.
I see.
And so, and then you become like a wandering spirit or whatever. Uh, so that's just the basic idea that I had, one of the things. So I think every floor having something unique like that, where there's like a choice between a relic, a like curse, like how Invaded the Abyss has a thing where once you go up a floor, one person melts and gets all decayed and goopified but is immortal, and the other person gets the blessing of the beast and turns into like a beast human thingy maboober. I don't have a whole lot of experience with Made in the Abyss, but stuff like that where there's that, or like perhaps you can expand a curse on somebody else in exchange for a lesser version of it being put upon yourself as a moral dilemma. So maybe the whole
E-
melting someone's bone. You can if you say
Yeesh.
no to the spirit ability, you get a casual casting of bone melt once, but doing so will cost you 2 phalanges, and you can't do it again, or something of that
Yeesh.
nature. I find things like that interesting, and it puts intriguing morals and ways to gain power in interesting and unique ways into the setting. However, let's move on into the final tips and tricks things. Um, if you had an idea to try to bring it to the table, then it just isn't explored how to your liking, don't force it down the player's throats. This is what I'm saying in the fact of in the previous campaign known as Wrapping Up the Rapture, we had a whole concept based off of sins and overcoming them. And my players failed me. I have no other way of putting it. They was horrible. It was interpersonal drama the stream and probably one of the biggest projects I regret working on. However, I still want to actually explore some of those ideas. But just running it again wouldn't do anything. That would be really painful for everyone involved. But so instead, I'm altering it into a sort of Dante's Inferno style. Rather, revise your ideas and bring something new and interesting to the table. As I said previously, there's a million ways to interpret the same thing. Everything's been done before. Don't beat a dead horse. Change it and take inspiration off of it to do something else. Similarly, I had taken inspiration off of the Genshin Impact's what's it called? Delusions for the pH pills. However, I came to the realization of I didn't super like how that turned out. I like how the pH pills turned out, but in the terms of actual raw inspiration from like a somewhat uh comparative standpoint of 1 to 1, they aren't really similar, and I don't think I did well with my inspiration. While I did make an interesting concept that I like in the world that I've run, I didn't super explore what I wanted to explore. So I decided to take both of them and add them into this campaign. A campaign where there are catalysts, elemental energies flowing throughout the world, and sins that are rampant. in a Dante's Inferno style dungeon dive and deeper into hell. Like I said, don't no one likes it to have the same idea flushed in their face over and over. Especially if they didn't like it the first time, they're not gonna like it the third or the fourth. Do
I
something new
see.
with it. Move on with your life. Secondarily, ask for advice from your players and other game masters, especially if you're new. If you think you have a
Huh?
cool idea, but you're not sure of how to implement it, ask them how they think it'd be implemented. Or, because some players are going to hate if you balance things in the moment by being like, oh, I gave you an item that's way too powerful. This enemy breaks that item in particular. Some people hate that. Other people are like, oh, yeah, no, I'm fine if you, like, take away an item, if you, like, regret giving it, so long as I get something else. So ask them how they feel about it, honestly. Communication is key. We're all adults here, hopefully. So, you ball. That's the end
I
of the
see.
story. Remember, every group is different. Uh, so not all advice you read online is good advice. A lot of people play this game. A lot of people would do something that
Yes.
would drive another person insane in this game, and it works totally fine for them. Every playgroup, while being different, there's not a harm in asking because you can literally just say, "Wow, I hated that advice," and not take it. Worst comes to worst. Just people like
Yeah.
ask the internet what they think. Hell, there's lots of subreddits for what do you think of this idea? If everyone's like, "Ah, I hate it," maybe you should look into it and change it a little bit. But we'll see. Um,
Figure out why they hate it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's constructive criticism, and then there's I just hate it, which is not very helpful. So, like I said,
That's fair.
ask for advice at your own risk, but there's no harm in it. You really should ask people who know like what they're doing. If you're like, I love this idea, but I don't know how to balance it, ask someone who does know how to balance it to help you. Easy. Plan ahead, but be ready for your players to surprise you. Even no matter how much you use my note system, there'll always be something that slips through the cracks. Not everyone can sit down for 8 hours and literally write out a whole campaign in the form of
Story.
bullet points and shorthand. Some people need to write more detailed notes and whatever. So, but just always remember, your players can and will surprise you. They are sentient creatures with their own functionality or not functionality. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And they
I just
will. Mhm.
just get ready to surprise you. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong.
Oh yeah, 100%. You can make a perfectly balanced encounter, and then your party gets 3 nat 1s, and someone dies. That chocobo can, who literally you wrote to not be able to kill anyone, they can go. Let's try to calm it down. Nat 1. Okay, I'm going to try to grapple it. Nat 1. Fuck it. We have to fight this thing. We have to just try to knock it out. Nat 1 on the like troll gets thrown off a cliff. They're dead now. Uh-oh. Things happen. You can't explain certain things. I've seen someone get 3 nat 20s in a row, and seen someone literally get 4 nat 1s in a row. An almost mathematical impossibility because that's a 20 times 20 times 20 whatever percent chance. So that's a lot. Yeah, crazy. Like 1 in
Yeah, that's insane.
80,000 or something. Um, but yeah, no, I've literally watched it. It was terrible.
Yeesh.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. Then understand the characters you're gonna play. It really helps to make roleplay flow better. The way I generally will do this is if it's a setting that already exists, I'll literally open up the character wiki and go to characterization tab or whatever, like the personality, and use those general descriptions to play as the character. If I'm running a module like Curse of Strahd, I will look at their flaws and things and then expand upon it. Because I don't like how D&D modules will go, oh, here's their flaw, here's their goal, here's their personality, and leave it very, very vague. Because the reason they do that is so that everyone can have their own take on the character, and that the lore is a little bit more loosey-goosey. But there's also always other lore stuff, which has like more canon explanations of things they're doing. So if I didn't write the character, I don't understand the character. I'll either literally just go to a wiki or whatever and make myself a little cheat sheet of the character, so that I can roleplay them better. It helps the flow way, way better. Then secondarily, the basis method is whenever I'm making a character. so that I can empathize with the character more, I will always give them one thing that is similar to myself. Even if it's
Oh,
something as simple as we both hate the color yellow. We both have an irrational hatred for yellow or something like that. And then everything else about the character is different. At least I can relate to the character on one thing, and that helps me get into their head better so that I can play them better. Uh, and so
that's interesting.
Yeah, I would suggest it heavily. Or if you're basing a character that has nothing in common with you, literally open up a wiki page, like I said, for someone who is similar to them, and then make yourself a cheat sheet of how they differ from the character that you're playing. If you have a charismatic, snarky asshole like John Constantine, but you yourself are actually a rather shy and reserved person, like I said, make a cheat sheet off of John Constantine, and then put like, ah, yes, but he's not as openly malicious as John Constantine is, or as downbeat on himself. He's a bit more humble, and he still has some more optimism in him, things like that.
Oh,
Uh,
that's smart.
yeah. Then the final thing is keep your players engaged. You should use cuts if your party is separated in two different areas. Cut between the two, back and forth. If one is in combat and one is not, have the people who are in combat are not in combat roll initiative and take it as an average between their initiative rolls. That way they're still doing something. And then have it be in like brackets in your initiative order. It cuts and they each get a turn of things to do in combat all back to back where they can use it to talk back and forth. Use cuts to keep them going so that the action continues flowing. Because honestly, if half your party's on their phone, it tends to go horribly wrong, whether it be in real life or in
Online.
online. Yeah, you want to keep people looking at you. Eye attention is good. Have NPCs ask players for their opinion. Some people don't like this actually if they're shy or something and they only want to like have their character roleplay on their own time, or they themselves, their character doesn't talk very much. But if an NPC asks, "What do you think of it, John?" and then John just goes grunt, well, the NPC is probably not going to ask John his opinion again. So there's no harm in doing it a couple of times, and it can help to keep things flowing and get people to say their mind. Uh, give
Right. They.
Give time for them to roleplay with each other without NPCs involved, and just see what happens. If they don't bite and they don't want to RP with each other, just don't force it again. Easy as pie. But some people love RP and inter party RP without like NPC involvement. So make sure they have opportunities to do that every now and again to keep them engaged. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
the biggest thing is know what the enemy can do on their turn. No one likes the DM sitting there for 2 minutes thinking about what to do on combat. The DM's turn should generally be the fastest for enemies. Even with spellcasters, you should be like, yeah, they're gonna cast a high level spell. They want to end this combat quickly. These are my options, and then look at the situation that is happening on their turn and pick which of those three options suits you best. Make sure your players do the same thing. I have numerous people who will sit there and take 4 minutes on their turns or something like that, and combat slows down as it's like a 15-minute turn. Honestly, I would
Is
say
it?
avoid that, especially if people, because that takes a lot of it out, because then people will be like, well, I had my turn planned ahead of time, but then he took 15 odd minutes. I got distracted, things changed, and I don't have a plan anymore.
Hmm.
And then they take a 15-minute turn. And then so then, yeah, you want to keep things flowing. I've heard people say put a timer in combat. I don't like that, especially with new players, because it can make it end up being it's too quick and they make poor life decisions. And then if they make a poor life decision, it feels more personal because they're like, well, I was rushed, whatever, whatever, whatever. And it tends to make people more salty. Whereas if they had minutes to think about it, just gently nudge them to think about what their turn is before it is their turn, and be like, that turn took a while. Try to have your thing planned next time. Like I said, be polite, be considerate, nudge them. And if they're gonna give you the power to be in charge, be in charge. Be a good leader. make sure things flow as best as you can to involve everybody. So it's a game for everyone. Um, and then my last piece of advice and for this section is don't be afraid to just wing something. Sometimes random moments that you thought up of in the moment end up becoming lasting memories from the campaign. Something really, really fun. Or something really, really
That's
funny.
hmm.
Like if someone people might not laugh out in the moment, but like if they die to the chocobo because they got like 3 nat 1s and they didn't roll above a 10 all night, it's gonna suck in the moment. But when you're retelling that story, it will be pretty funny. They'll be like, "Damn, I was rolling like shit that night. It was so salty." Yeah, stuff like that happens. And there's only
Yeah.
so much you can do. So don't be afraid to wing it and say things that you think this was what would happen under those circumstances. Disregard notes if you think you come up with something better. Um, Most people understand needing to rebalance something if that's the case. If you give them, like for example, if you're using this campaign setting as I continue to develop it over the course of this series, um, if you need to rebalance something like you give them a catalyst, the catalyst is too strong. You shouldn't have given them a fireball at level 3. They should have waited to have it be level 5 instead, even if it's only once a day. You thought it was better, but they keep exploding the low level enemies too quickly. Just be like, oh hey, it's a level 5 thing now, and they level up to level 4. Most people understand. Um, there's always a way to fix minor mistakes. If it's something happens where it's like, ah, fuck, they died to a chocobo. No one has Revivify. Well, shit, now they're dead instead of just being like temp dead. Give a resurrection quest. An interesting resurrection quest where it's like,
Ooh. They
uh,
have to escape hell.
yeah, or something. They have to escape hell. Or they have to find deeper in the lair. There's supposedly a guardian spirit who is blessed with the ability of true resurrection. You need to get to the next lair. There's like I said, there's lots of ways to fix minor mistakes. Um, don't be afraid to do so. Like I said, if you have an enemy that's supposed to be easy and it's decimating your party because of rolls, you can always shave off 10 max HP from the creature. That's a turn less that it will survive, generally speaking. Yeah, so don't be afraid to wing it and do what you feel in your heart. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to continue on with this presentation in the next one. Bye bye.
Yay. Bye bye.